Yeah, so no, my name's Ryan Tessier. I am the manager of analytics in the analytics department. I manage a fairly good sized team of about 8 to 10 people, of folks who build data analysis reports and try to get insights to help the business be more efficient and do more cool things. I've got a data scientist who uses machine learning algorithms to make predictions about what things might look like in the future, and then a team of data engineers who make sure that the data is properly managed.
And how long have you been working here?
I've been working here for just a little over a year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have any special education or training for your position?
So I have my PhD in mathematics, but one thing I'll add to that is that the cool thing about the data space, and especially at like a place like SaskEnergy, which is, they're maturing in their data knowledge and things like that, is that the folks who do data really come from a really diverse background, in the sense that, on my team, all three of my full-time employees, analysts and data scientists, they're all engineers of different engineering backgrounds, like environmental engineering, mechanical engineering, software engineering. And around the larger data community, there's folks who have like psychology degrees. There's folks who've sort of self-educated themselves. So even though I have a PhD in math, it's more for me, I managed to turn my hobby into a job. But for a lot of other folks, data is something that a lot of folks can pick up. And the way that we work here is that in data specifically, if you have the skills, we give you a shot. So.
What are your main duties?
My main duties, because I'm in management, I'm really responsible for making sure that the team's as effective as possible. So definitely, it's a lot of oversight over what the team's doing, making sure that they're on track, that they're producing, data visualizations, or using machine learning to actually do something useful instead of just doing something that I would consider fun, but they might consider work. So
let's do that.
So just because I am in management, I don't get to always do the fun stuff. Sometimes it's a little bit tough, but because I have sort of those three components on my team, the data analysts, the data scientists, the data engineers, each of those folks sort of does some different things. So the data analysts, they're really focused on working really closely with the business to identify business processes, take in data that the business uses, and trying to find improvements that can be made by making data available, or doing an analysis and making a recommendation on how we can improve a process. Some of the work they've done have led to some pretty cool operational improvements and finding different failures out in the field. And one of the cool things about it too is that they get to kind of see the whole company, so they get to be kind of like a jack of all trades in terms of the different things that they do. The data scientist, his experience is in coding and programming. So if you're really into computers and really into getting computers to do cool stuff, that's a really good career, just because you're using machine learning models to make predictions. You think of like ChatGPT and how popular it is right now. And this is the type of work that that you kind of have to know the backbone of what built ChatGPT to be able to do our data scientist's job. For the data engineers, they're kind of like the workhorses. They're probably the most highly paid because they have one of the jobs that's very technical, in that you're going to be using lots of computers to model and process data. And but on the other side, they also have to make sure that the business is managing its data really effectively, which is maybe not the most exciting for everybody, but it does pay well. No, actually, one of the underappreciated things about my job is, honestly, it's just going to different business units and talking about what I love. I get to talk about data analytics. I get to put a lot of memes in a lot of PowerPoints. I get to find funny videos that I can put up there, because data's a pretty. It can seem to the outside looking in like it's not not as accessible as some of the more business focused stuff, but we try to, at least in our team, we try to pride ourselves in kind of trying to make it fun, making it accessible, making it understandable for people around the business. So a lot of what I do as a manager is just popularize my team, celebrate the wins that they have, and yeah, just enjoy the success that they're having and make sure that I can prop them up wherever I can. So that's definitely one of the folks don't really know about that part as much, but it's one of the funnest parts of the job, honestly, because you just get to talk about fun, cool, new things that and work with some really cool people like the folks on my team.
What are some of the challenges in your role?
Because data is pretty new. It's a for a long time people had used data, but it was very much small data. We were using really tiny data sets, using just manually entered data, trying to figure out insights from that. And when that's the case, you don't need a heavily advanced skill set to figure that out. With data now, and in the big data world where we've got billions of data generated every single day, billions of records for any given company, it requires a more a stronger skill set. And so one of the hardest things is that oftentimes the best people in data are not necessarily the people who might on paper look like they're the best. They're the people who have that commitment and that curiosity, that willingness to learn and dig into a problem. And it's one of these things where I don't think that we've quite adapted well to just performance-based, to just bringing people in just based on performance instead of having a bunch of credentials. Like myself, I have a PhD, but honestly, when it comes to hiring folks, for me, it's not about the credentials. It's all about who they are as a person, whether they're willing to learn, whether they've put in the time to kind of learn the skills that are required. So it's definitely a challenge, but it's also one of the cool opportunities about the data space is that if you have the skills, people like me are going to be really interested in trying you out because you never know. So
what are some of the salary ranges for positions under your management?
Yeah, so in my team, so we sort of range. We have quite a few different levels. Probably at the most junior level, it would probably be around 55 to 75K, and that's pretty much entry-level type job. But very quickly, you can move up into a more senior role where you're making around 75 to 105,000. From there, folks kind of specialize a little bit more. Data scientist or potentially data engineer, where you're making more like 85 to 120,000. And then if you move into management or becoming an extra, we don't have a position like this, but sometimes there's some extra specialist positions out there where you could be making 95 to 140,000. So there's definitely a huge upside to learning these skills.
And what about pension and benefits?
Pension benefits, fantastic. Yeah, they're really, really, really nice. One of the things is it's hard to appreciate when you're pretty young how useful some of that stuff is. Getting some time off, getting a pension taken care of for you. We've got some extra flexible spending benefits that we can spend on a few different things. So there's a lot of extra perks that sort of raise that salary bar further and further up. And even though it's not direct cash always, those things really help. Like having even just the pension, having that cushion there to know that you don't have to, you're being saved. The company's saving for you, essentially, for your retirement. And it's nice.
What kind of supports for professional development are there? Like, so if you want to move up in the company.
Yeah. So let's talk about two different ways that we look at it here. One, formally, there's quite a lot of, we have a really good learning and development team within the HR department, which are really good at finding new courses that you might be interested in. The company's also willing to fund a certain number of courses per year to kind of help you build your skills. But I've also noticed just with a lot of the culture here, I think the focus is on professional development and trying to improve your skill set. So, the availability is important, but the fact that we sort of have a really nice learning culture, both in the data team and throughout SaskEnergy, I think this really helps set that tone, because if everybody else around you is trying to learn, trying to get better, it makes you want to get better too.
What are the opportunities like in the field? Is there shortages?
In data specifically? Yeah, there's definitely some shortages. It's a pretty new, it's funny, there's a lot of folks trying to get into the space because there is a high salary, but the challenge that we often have is that oftentimes it can be hard to find folks who really want to stick with it and get to that more senior level, because it is a fair bit of learning. You have to constantly be a type of person who wants to always be learning. And some folks, they get into it because they think it's just the salary, but it's also having that mindset of growth and learning and things like that. And so oftentimes it can be hard to find the folks sort of mid-career, just because one is that there's a lot of demand in this field, so it's hard to find good candidates because there's other companies out there who pay even more than we do. But two is just that some people just don't stick with it. It's the type of field that is it's very challenging, but it's also very rewarding if you happen to step up to the challenge.
And what about your work-life balance? Do you work shift work or?
Yeah. So at least in the office here, doing in the data team, I think the work-life balance is really great. SaskEnergy is really good with the time off. I think, what do we get here? I think it can range from up to 3 up to 6 weeks off. Plus you get all the holidays. Plus you get sick leave. Plus you get some EDOs. So, and EDOs meaning you get some extra couple weeks of time off. So it probably adds up to around 7 or 8 weeks off during the year. I talk to like American colleagues of mine who work in the private industry in the States, and they get 2 weeks off per year. So, say goodbye to a life at 2 weeks off. So it is a really nice work-life balance here, for sure.
Great. Well, thanks, Ryan.
Right on.
Great.